transition a child, you are guilty of child abuse, and every doctor, every nurse, every clinician that is helping that is culpable in that crime.
This thing is so full of pork that even Scrooge and the Grinch are happy about it.
There wouldn't be a First Amendment without the Second Amendment. Your right to freedom of speech, your freedom of religion, the freedom and liberties that we have in this country, the Second Amendment, and never ever forget that.
She's not going to be the great savior for the Democrats, and they can't skip over the first black woman vice president with the whitest man ever in history, Gavin Newsom.
It's time that we, the people, take this country back.
And if you try to transition a child, you are guilty of child abuse, and every doctor, every nurse, every clinician that is helping that is culpable in that crime.
This thing is so full of pork that even Scrooge and the Grinch are happy about it.
There wouldn't be a First Amendment without the Second Amendment. Your right to freedom of speech, your freedom of religion, the freedom and liberties that we have in this country are because of the Second Amendment, and never ever forget that.
She's not going to be the great savior for the Democrats, and they can't skip over the first black woman vice president with the whitest man ever in history, Gavin Newsom.
It's time that we, the people, take this country back.
And if you try to transition a child, you are guilty of child abuse, and every doctor, every nurse, every clinician that is helping that is culpable in that crime.
This thing is so full of pork that even Scrooge and the Grinch are happy about it.
There wouldn't be a First Amendment without the Second Amendment. Your right to freedom of speech, your freedom of religion, the freedom and liberties that we have in this country are because of the Second Amendment, and never ever forget that.
She's not going to be the great savior for the Democrats, and they can't skip over the first black woman vice president with the whitest man ever in history, Gavin Newsom.
It's time that we, the people, take this country back. Hey everybody, welcome. This is Congressman Andy Ogles to this 35th episode of Restoring the Republic. Look, there's a lot to cover today, but I'm going to have to be quick. But look, we've had tornadoes in Nashville. The Senate was a dud. You've got Liberation Day, President Trump. You've got President Trump's third term hitting the mainstream. You've got the elections in Florida, Supreme Court in Wisconsin, a lot to cover, so let's get to it. So look, the Senate budget bill is really offensive, quite frankly. It's a joke. So really quickly, the House put forward a proposal that cuts $1.5 trillion. Obviously, we're barreling towards $37 trillion in debt. We've got to get serious about balancing the budget, cutting spending, et cetera. So what does the Senate do? What does the Senate do? They give us a bill that only cuts $3 to $4 billion. Look, you can't buy a sports team for that much money. The Biden administration gave $3 billion to illegals in 3 years under his term. So this is offensive. And so I'm a hard no on this junk. Look, $1.5 trillion, that was a serious offer from the House of Representatives. A $3 to $4 billion cut is offensive to the American people. It's a joke. It should not have been presented. If you're serious about doing this, then you need to come back to us with something that is literally going to help President Trump. We're going to make his tax cuts permanent. We're going to send a message to the markets, to the American people, that we're going to stop this frivolous spending. We're going to get into the weeds. We're going to stop funding illegals. We're going to start deporting people. We're going to start doing all the things that we promised the American people. And look, you can go to the elections down in Florida where those candidates ran on fulfilling the promises made by Donald Trump, and they won. You go to Wisconsin, and it was a milquetoast campaign, and we lost. It's that simple. Promises made, promises kept. That's what we've got to do as we go forward. The people of this country want a change agent. President Trump is a generational leader. That's why I think he's going to get a third term. That's why I have the bill for that. But before we get to that, I want to talk to President Trump's about his Liberation Day. Play the clip.
President Trump pushing ahead with his America First agenda.
Breaking news, Apple announced it's going to work with Foxconn to build a server factory in Texas by 2026.
The company says it is now planning to invest $500 billion in the U.S. economy.
The CEO of SoftBank pledging to invest $100 billion in the U.S. over the next 4 years.
This is President Trump delivering on the promise he made to the American people on the campaign trail.
The idea is come to America, build greatness in America, build for the American customers.
Project Stargate. It's a joint venture between SoftBank, Oracle, and OpenAI, and they're going to create a data center that will eventually be expanded to other states.
Shows people are listening to Mr. Trump's pitch to bring new industry to America.
This is the latest pledge from a foreign business leader promising to spend big in the U.S. as a result of Trump's election victory.
Founder of the property development company DeMac Properties is pledging the money.
President Trump announcing $100 billion investment from Taiwan Semiconductor, bringing the company's total American investments to $165 billion.
The most powerful AI chips in the world will be made right here in America.
Things happen so quickly in the Trump world, right? It's 100 days. Right. It feels like it's 100 months. This is leadership. This is taking control of the problem for military, for everything, for industrial, for our economy. Even if it causes short-term pain, the reality is it is the right decision.
NVIDIA says it will invest hundreds of billions of dollars over the next 4 years, part of the manufacturing renaissance under President Donald J. Trump.
Furniture maker Prepack are shifting their operations from Canada to North Carolina.
Johnson & Johnson says it will invest more than $55 billion in the U.S. over the next 4 years.
Hyundai announced a $20 billion investment.
With your leadership, Mr. President, Hyundai Motor Group is proud to be a stronger partner in America's industrial future.
This is the automobile industry, and now those plants largely have stopped and they're moving them to our country. Honda is building one of the biggest plants.
The trade story is certainly picking up speed here and pushing more countries to make these bigger investments.
So there you have it. It's working. And I'm going to give you some examples. A lot of people are freaking out about these tariffs. So over the last 40 years, so you go back to FDR, fast forward to today, you've seen manufacturing outsource. You've seen allies and enemies alike tariffing American goods sold in their country. So China puts a 67% tariff on American goods sold in their country. Our reciprocal tariff is only 34%. Japan, an ally, is 46%. Ours is only 24%. You look at Cambodia, they put a tariff of 97% on our goods. The reciprocal tariff is only 49%. So this is art of the deal. So typically when you look at a tariff, it's a strategic, it's a surgical instrument. But what President Trump has done in the same way he's leveraged Doge, and by the way, Doge will cut more today out of the budget, saving American taxpayers today than the Senate bill will over the course of the bill. So that I just want to put that in perspective. But going back to the tariffs, you look at these countries, Pakistan, 58%. Our reciprocal tariff is only 29%. Sri Lanka, 88%. Our reciprocal is 44%. So what you now have are these countries and these companies coming back to the table, say, you know what? We want to have a new trade deal with your country. We want access to your markets. We want access to your capital. We know it's the greatest economy in the world. And so we have the opportunity to bring those jobs back. And in the meantime, we have the opportunity to decouple from China. When you look at our supply chain, we saw during COVID when we were over-reliant on China, we had issues with supply chain. When you go back to wars, whether it's a Revolutionary War, Civil War, when you look at World War II, the countries that had access to manufacturing and supply chain, that was part of the reason why they won. We've got to bring manufacturing and supply chain back to our country, back to North America, so that we are not only the dominant predator from a military standpoint, but an economic standpoint. So this is critical as we go forward. So kudos to President Trump. So look, he's bringing a sledgehammer to the trade process, but it's working. And as I think what I'll predict as we go forward, you're going to start seeing these tariff numbers will start to change as countries like Israel, go down the list, start to say, hey, we want to come into some sort of agreement with your country. So with that, We have this clip from Seth Meyers. So I have the bill that would amend the Constitution to allow Trump to serve a third term. Now, it's very specific. It only applies to presidents who don't serve 2 consecutive terms. That's only happened twice in history. Grover Cleveland, he was the 22nd and 24th president. President Trump is the 45th and the 47th president. Both of those men would be eligible for a third term to serve those 2 consecutive terms. Now, that said, amending the Constitution is incredibly tough, but at the end of the day, we pass it in the House, we pass it to the Senate, we give it to the people to be ratified. There's a process in place to make it constitutional. Play the clip.
People want you to run for a third term, which you can't do, but it would actually be a 4th term because Biden's term was your 2nd term, but you don't want to take credit because he did a bad job during his term, which was technically your term, but you had nothing to do with it, so you deserve a 3rd term, which is actually your 4th term. Is it possible that Air Force One is flying so high they're losing oxygen? No, I don't need the mask. I'm good. I've been thinking clearly. To be clear, there's no such thing as a 3rd term. Let's not entertain it like it's a real thing. The Constitution is crystal clear that a president can only have 2 terms. This isn't coming out of nowhere. Republicans have already started laying the groundwork.
Tennessee Republican Congressman Andy Ogles has introduced a House resolution to allow president to be elected to a 3rd term. In a statement, Ogles said the amendment would, quote, allow President Trump to serve 3 terms, ensuring that we can sustain the bold leadership our nation so desperately needs.
I'm a firm believer that President Trump.
So what you see here is you have Bannon talking about it, you have the president talking about it, and now you have the left, a late night show talking about it. So this is entering the mainstream. This is a serious conversation that we're having and we're going to have as we move forward. And if nothing else, it draws a clear contrast between the Democrats' policies, failed policies, and what President Donald Trump is doing. It forces that conversation of where you draw a contrast between the successes of DOGE, of President Trump, and what the Biden failed administration did and has done to our country. The fact that it's going to take a decade to unwind the damage done by President Biden. So look, this is a serious conversation. I'm going to push full bore ahead to try to make this happen. But if it doesn't happen, we were able to force this conversation. But I would say stay tuned. We're going to fight for this country. We're going to fight for a 3rd term for the president, and ultimately the electorate will get to decide. This is Congressman Andy Ogles. Have a great day. God bless. And to all of those in the paths of the storms, we had storms come through Nashville. They're continuing to move north, northeast. Be careful, stay tuned, and God bless.
If you try to transition a child, you are guilty of child abuse, and every doctor, every nurse, every clinician that is helping that is culpable in that crime.
This thing is so full of pork that even Scrooge and the Grinch are happy about it.
There wouldn't be a First Amendment without the Second Amendment. Your right to freedom of speech, your freedom of religion, the freedom and liberties that we have in this country are because of the Second Amendment. And never, ever forget that.
She's not